After several hours of straight grinding, I was lucky enough to obtain the new Nightfall exclusive piece of loot for the Inverted Spire Strike. In this video, we're going to take a look at that piece of loot so that you guys can decide if you want to grind for it, and if you do, the second half of the video is going to be a Nightfall guide for the Inverted Spire so that you know how to grind this Nightfall efficiently and effectively. And so, let's get started. What is up, guys? Rick Cacus here, and today we have another super rare piece of loot. This will only drop from a Nightfall completion, and the higher your score on a Prestige Nightfall, the better your chances of this dropping. But even with the world's highest score, this isn't a guaranteed drop. If you did get it first try, it means you're lucky, not that this isn't rare. Now, for the Inverted Spire, the featured Nightfall loot is an exotic ghost shell, the Trichromatica. Let's take a look at its perks. First off, we have Banshee's favorite, generate gunsmith telemetry data on any elemental weapon kills at an increased rate. Generally a pretty good perk that is featured on quite a few exotic ghost shells. It's just gonna let you, farm the gunsmith more efficiently. After that, we have Nessus Experience Log. Gain 10% more experience while on Nessus. Now this is combined with the last perk, which is Nessus Cache Detector. Detect caches within a 30-meter range while on Nessus. So, overall, this looks like a great shell for grinding Flashpoint Nessus. Aside from that, not really. There is definitely more impressive exotic ghost shells out there. Heck, there's some with straight 10% increases to experience across the board. So, this is definitely a little disappointing. I would have liked to see, 20% increase experience for grinding on Nessus. That would have made this shell worth using in specific scenarios, whereas right now, it does, I guess, fulfill a niche role, but it's pretty niche. But certainly, it looks pretty cool, and it is exclusive. If you have this shell, you're almost guaranteed that other people won't. So if you do want to grind the Inverted Spire Nightfall, how should you go about it? Well, let's look at my recommended loadout. Now, first off, the thing that's going to impact your loadout is my recommended Singe, and that would be Void. Simply put, there is way too many enemies using Solar to even consider using a Solar Singe, in my opinion. There's both a ton of Hobgoblins and Scions in this strike, both using Solar Snipers, and for Arc, there's a ton of Cabal using the Arc Shotguns, and the end boss fight mostly has him shooting an arc weapon as well. So Void, you're going to be able to do bonus damage all the time, and you're going to be hit by bonus damage very little. So, keeping that in mind, I'm using the Voidwalker Warlock with the bottom Devour tree, simply because it's not as good as ad clearing as Cataclysm, obviously, but you get increased damage against bigger enemies and bosses when you have that lingering damage over time. In addition, the actual Devour melee is incredibly good for survivability. I absolutely love it. In terms of my kinetic weapon, I'm using a Purpose. Scout Rifles got a PvE damage buff recently by around 15%. They're at a great place right now. The Prosecutor was good before the buff. It's amazing now. As for my energy weapon, I'm using a Positive Outlook auto rifle, simply because of the versatility. You can use this auto rifle at pretty long ranges. It is a precision weapon, and it covers you in those close ranges as well. In terms of my heavy, I'm using the Sins of the Past rocket launcher, and I would highly recommend you also use a rocket launcher with cluster bombs. In fact, I would recommend the Sins of the Past, simply because of its insane blast radius. That's actually going to mean it sometimes does less damage against the boss that you would like, but it is so good at ad clearing. You shoot it at a group of ads and it kills everyone on your screen. Like, the blast radius works in its favor there, and that's the majority of the time you're going to use it. You fight the boss for the very end little bit. You're fighting big groups of ads for the other 90% of the strike, and therefore the Sins of the Past is excellent. Lastly, for my exotic armor piece, I'm using the Skull of Dire Ahamkara. This is going to give me increased survivability when using my Nova Bomb and, importantly, give me Nova Energy depending on how many enemies I kill. If you get like a pentakill or even a quad, you're going to have half your Nova charged, which is really good, and it basically means you get to use your Nova Bomb overall quite a lot more. And I would definitely recommend Voidwalker. I do think it's a little bit better than Sentinel Titan, and I would also recommend running at least one Night Stalker with Orpheus rigs to have massive orb production and a ton of tethers. Tethers are fantastic in this strike. I mean, I'm going to show background gameplay right now. We use 6 tethers in this room. 6. That is going to do wonders for your points. Now moving on to the actual strike, which I'm going to spend a little bit less time on. It's basically just killing enemies. The most important part is getting your build right. Now in terms of the difficulty modifier, we're using around a 7 to get a 2 times damage bonus. And therefore we were able to consistently get over 60,000. Now Bungie did state that again there's point thresholds, likely it's going to be 40, 60, 80, just like earning the emblems, that you're going to get an increased chance to get the unique Nightfall loot. The reason we're going to 60,000 is because to get to 80,000, you have to let more enemies spawn, so you can't kill the boss as quickly. You actually have to let the enemies spawn as you're fighting him, and it gets to the point where the difficulty and the extra time it takes is not worth the speed and the easiness that going down to only a 7 difficulty multiplier does grant. So that's kind of the sweet spot we found in still getting a pretty good score of 60,000, but also being able to just farm this strike fast. Now right off the bat, speaking of being fast, remember that the beginning group of enemies in that public event space do not give you any points. So definitely, you're gonna have to kill a few, but skip past as many as you can and just get through that area as fast as possible. You want to get into the area where you're actually getting points for getting kills. Another important tip is kill scions right away. There's a lot of scions, there's a lot of hobgoblins, and they're only a problem when you ignore them, when you try to take out a group of enemies and then, oh, you're gonna kill the scion after. But, 3 sniper shots from the scion and you're down and suddenly you're in a big problem. So kill the snipers first before moving in on groups of enemies. In addition, orb production is very important. Make sure you communicate with your Night Stalker, especially when he's using his super, so that you don't rocket the group of enemies he's going to super. You definitely would rather him hit his bow and then rocket that group of enemies. That's going to result in a ton of orbs, everyone gets their super, you get a ton of points, everyone's happy. Now continuing on with the strike, you're going to enter this wide open space. There's a lot of baseline enemies fighting each other, both Vex and Cabal, and don't skip these guys. This is definitely an opportunity for you to generate a ton of points. Your Night Stalker can use his super and easily tag enough enemies that he's going to have it back up for the next part. You should be aware though that if you move too far forward, it will despawn all of these back enemies. So if you're in the middle of using your tether, if you're in the middle of killing a guy, he'll despawn right in front of you and you'll get 0 points. So make sure you're not pushing up too far until you've farmed the amount of enemies you do want to. Moving on from there, it's pretty straightforward. Just kill guys when you have the opportunity. Definitely there's going to be a big bunch of enemies. Great opportunity for a tether, followed up by something like a Nova Bomb. That's going to get you a ton of orbs. And also, don't ignore that Colossus. Seriously, do not ignore him. He can kill you outright with 1 volley of rockets. So definitely kill that big group of enemies first and foremost, and then turn your attention to the Scions and that Colossus. Then you can easily take out the mini bosses and move on. Now once you do move on, you're going to end up in this very small room. You have to activate one little objective, and then you just hold out here while tons of enemies spawn. This is where you're going to farm a ton of points if you do this properly. And again, this really showcases why you need a Night Stalker. We are able to use 6 tethers. That's absolutely insane, and that combined with Nova Bomb or combined even with Sentinel is going to net you a ton of orbs, and you can easily clear this room. The thing I would definitely say is don't be afraid to go ham. Do not hold back on rockets. Do not hold back on supers. There are so many enemies that it's very, very easy to get your power ammo back. Like, you will have no problem getting full power ammo even if you use quite a bit of power ammo, and same thing for supers. There's so many enemies, you're going to be generating a ton of orbs. All 3 players are going to be using their supers. It's going to be fine. So definitely don't hold back. You don't want to be primarying like 40 different war beasts charging at you. It's not going to work out. Now moving on, everything's going to be pretty straightforward until you get to the Cabal Mine. Here, you have the opportunity to get more points. A lot of people, especially when you're just doing the normal strike, get on a Sparrow and drive through that middle layer and just get to the boss fight. While you can certainly do that, and it does help your speed in terms of farming, you can also spend really not too much time, rocket, and just primary down some enemies to get quite a few points, because there are quite a few easy to kill enemies in this mine that if you ignore, you definitely might miss those milestones for increasing your chance to get the loot. After that, we have the boss fight. Now for this, we did find that it was most efficient to use your Nova Bomb right away just on the boss. You're going to have it recharged when you need it again for adds. But like 1 Nova Bomb, 1 rocket combined with your teammates, you know, maybe 1 or 2 rockets and some primary, and he's already immune. It really doesn't take much. Nova Bomb does quite a bit of damage. And then if you do use that, you can save your rockets for the other portions of this boss fight. Then you're going to drop down, and quick reminder, primary him first before using rockets, just so you can see damage numbers pop up and you know he's not immune. I have seen so many rockets wasted on this portion when he's taking no damage. So just again, shoot him with your weapon until you see, oh, damage number, then switch to your rocket and just hit him. When you fall down to the last level, you do have an opportunity. There's like a group of Vex that your Night Stalker can definitely tether, and they provide enough orbs that he's going to get his tether back pretty soon after, actually. And then we have the final stage of the boss fight. And here I have absolutely my biggest tip. Guys, if you made it this far, this is really, really going to help you out if you do plan on doing this. So, the boss has several different phases, but the last phase, when his head gets knocked off, is when he goes insane. So you want to actually prevent that from happening. What you want to do is get him so that he is just below 1/3 of his health. Once that happens, there's going to be a group of enemies that spawn. And as long as he doesn't have his head knocked off, he is not going to come into the middle of this arena. He is only going to stay on the outskirts, which makes it pretty easy for you to avoid him. Just go behind cover, right? This lets you farm a group of adds, that spawns of course, and that gives you points. And then there's going to be a second group of adds that spawn, and you don't really have to damage him. You can shoot a few like auto rifle rounds into him to kind of trigger the spawn sometimes, but you really don't need to damage him. So a second group of adds is going to spawn in a different location. Kill those, you know, farm them with, you know, supers, especially tether if you can to get points. And then after that, no more adds will spawn. It'll just be the boss. And that is your opportunity to kill him right away. You can see us in the background, like 1 rocket and a couple of Nova Bombs, boom, he's done. Like, he's done from that. So you just instantly kill the boss and avoid his super aggro phase. If you do too much damage, if you knock his head off, he's going to run right up on the platform with you. He's going to shoot a lot faster. He's going to be super aggressive, and it triggers another round of adds to spawn as soon as his head gets knocked off. And it triggers fanatics to spawn as well. So it is a big problem if you damage him too much. Again, get him to that last third, then kill the 2 waves of adds that spawn just to get points, and then finish him off in one big blaze of glory to avoid all of the problems that boss causes. That is by far the superior way to kill him. And so guys, that is it for the video. Good luck getting your exotic ghost shell. Guys, if you enjoyed this video and found it informative, please remember to support it by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. Now, if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.